Yeah, so welcome back, guys. I apologize about the cutoff, but the video just stopped in the middle of me doing my sermon, so I'm going to continue where I left off. The vagus nervous system, which I'm totally going to make a whole separate video on just this alone because this is important. But anyways, the vagus nervous system begins in the limbic system, right? And is the main wiring for keeping the body functioning. From eyesight to anus, the vagus nerve is in charge of it all. The vagus nerve and the limbic system work simultaneously together, keeping your emotions running smoothly. Your engine and your emotions running smoothly. So it is very important to understand that the vagus nervous system is connected to every fucking thing in your body. This is what allows you to be able to, see, talk, move, act, react, all of that. It's all connected. And, to understand that your heart and your heart and your brain is connected through the vagus nervous system. Where in your heart is where consciousness resides, and in your brain, is where that's the ancients say that consciousness lives in the heart. So how they say that your mind your heart has a mind of its own. So this is where these kinds of these so-called things stem about. It comes from understanding science, a little bit of science, a little bit of health, a little bit of history. So just being able to connect all of these things is what's going to get you to greater understanding of yourself. So anyways, let's continue. The vagus nerve connects your emotion. Limbic system to your ears, mouth, throat, lungs, heart, stomach, intestines, anus, sexual organs. All of your major organs and glands are connected, and all are negatively affected via the vagus nerve without proper chemicals from the pineal gland. It all goes back to your pineal gland, which then goes to your pituitary gland, which is your major gland for functioning, period, in your brain. So where we try to separate ourselves from that what is where we fuck up. Because everything that's happening inside of us is happening outwards. And from, even when we look at what's happening on the planet, the same thing that's happening on the planet is happening outwards. So the universe that you have in the stars or in the sky, or the cosmic universe that's in the sky, is at the astrological programming in the sky is also inside of you. Everything as above, so below, so below, as above. You understand? So it's very important for you to not overlook things nowadays in this day and time, because everything is connected one way, shape, or form or another. So you got to just understand that information that is presented to you is coming in a timely fashion. So it's best for you to pay attention. Okay, symptoms from calcified pineal gland. Okay, so symptoms from having a calcified pineal gland, nervous, okay, so we got heart palpitation, nervous stomach, excessive sweating, indigestion / reflux, anxiety, insomnia, headaches, migraines, inability to control emotions, racing thoughts, depression, hopelessness, inability to manage life. The limbic system has 4 functions, which is the hypothalamus, the amygdala, the thalamus, and the hippocampus. Okay? And just to go ahead and close this video off, I will quickly go into those 4 parts of the limbic system so that you can understand how important it is to have a decalcified pineal gland. It's so important. This is like, man. So let's start with the amygdala. Excuse me. The amygdala. Excuse me. So sorry. Which is part of the limbic system. It controls the way you act to stimuli, which is basically information or emotions, which we're going to rely to emotions. Part of the limbic system at the end of the hippocampus, responsible for memory of emotions and fear. So when you think of the amygdala, you got to think of fear, hypersexuality, hyperorality, behavior syndromes, and so forth. Is the reason we are afraid of things outside of our control. The amygdala is why we step into fearful states of mind. It's also a place where positive states of new information come in as well, where cognitive dissonance sets in. When you don't really know how to assess information. It starts here. Okay? So we got that. The hippocampus, part of the limbic system as well. And each temporal lobe, long-term memory and emotional response memory of objects, of location and people. And this is where Alzheimer's disease occurs. So in the hippocampus, if your hippocampus basically stops working, which is like the most recognizable thing in the brain because of its shape. And I believe this, if I'm not mistaken, it sits at the back of the brain, if I'm not mistaken. And like I say, it affects your short-term memory. It's what allows a short-term memory to become a long-term memory. It is where your memory begins to grow or fade. You understand? So your ability to be able to understand, this is where I live. You understand? Or this is where I'm going. That's where this starts at, the hippocampus, okay? Or that's where your understanding of those things come from. The hypothalamus, homeostasis, stable, constant condition above the pituitary gland and below the thalamus, basically like a thermometer. That's what this hypothalamus is. Think about it as like a thermometer, something like on the lines of a thermometer. Responsible for body temperatures. It lets you know whether you're hungry or thirsty, your thirst patterns. Where most of our anger begins. This part of the brain also controls the pituitary gland, which is the master gland that controls all the other endocrine glands in the body, which connects the endocrine system with the nervous system. All right, so basically, our fight to finish, you understand, or to solve things and gain overstanding or understanding, our hypothalamus really affects the ability to grasp certain things, depending on our temperature gauge, depending on where we are as far as hunger goes, thirst goes, mentally, if there's the right amount of water being or right amount of chemicals being secreted throughout the brain and so forth. So the hypothalamus definitely plays a great role, and none of these parts in the brain can be overlooked. And unfortunately, in the West, most of us are calcified. Most of us have calcified pineal glands, and we wonder why we can only operate at 10%. Because once the pineal gland is calcified, everything starts to calcify throughout the body, and now you begin to lose bits and pieces of you. But anyways, the thalamus, which is a part of the forebrain below the corpus callosum, and is in simple terms our way of diagnosing or identifying or analyzing different sensory information that is being transmitted in the brain, such as senses like sounds, visuals, touch, textile, gestures or gestury, and relating to taste, signals, basically senses. After analyzing it, it sends the information to different parts of the lobes of the cortex. Any damage to this part of the brain can result to sensory confusion, possible meltdown/shutdown. So it's your relay station. It's where you relay information and you analyze it to figure out if it's a disease or if it's this, that, and the third. This is where you find out what's entering into the body. And I believe the pituitary gland would then decide whether or not that information. Let me back up. Let me just back up and not even go there right now, because I'm not 100% on that, so I'm gonna back up. So we got the hippocampus, the amygdala, the hypothalamus, and the thalamus. All the four parts that make up the limbic system, which is formerly known, or which we would like to call in the conscious community, the Eye of Horus, or the structure of Eye of Horus. The reason why we create the eye that you see, the Egyptian eye, because if you cut the hemisphere in half, you will see the limbic system that looks very identical to the Eye of Horus, which the pineal gland sits as the size of a pea in the very center of the limbic system. Okay, and the limbic system, which I believe I explained already before, which is a group of structures linked to the process of emotions. Let's just leave it at that. It's a system, it's a group of structures linked to the process of emotions, memories, positive, fearful instincts. It's where your instincts start. It's where you fathom instincts. You understand? Your instincts and everything else goes from the limbic system and so forth. So I hope that we were able to learn something from this simple lesson. We're going to go a little more in depth on other videos in the future, but I just had to make this simple video to explain some very, very simple things that some of my close friends and family members have not completely understood. So just to give you a little more, the hypothalamus responds to a variety of signals from the inside out environment, the body, the circulation of hormones, whether or not you are full or hungry. So the hypothalamus circulates your hormones, whether you're hungry, whether you're full. Once again, it's like a thermometer, your body temperature, so forth. It also responds to stress and controls our daily bodily rhythms, such as our nighttime secretion of melatonin, from the pineal gland, and the changes in cortisol, the stress hormone, and body temperatures over a 24-hour period. The hypothalamus collects imperial data and puts changes in place to correct any imbalances. See, this is where I was getting ready to mess up earlier. I was getting ready to tell you that the pituitary gland is what corrects information, but it was actually the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus corrects or imbalances any data or information or empirical information that has come in that could possibly be harmful, and tries to correct that information, or it tries to imbalance you simply by sending information that could cause a change as far as your body's general functionality goes. So these are important things that we need to become more familiarized with. Now, I have embarked on this journey to understanding what's going on with me and what's going on in life. And unfortunately, I've had to use the English tongue to gain this understanding, since I don't know other languages, fluently at least. And this is where my studies have led me. Being a man who I know for a fact had a calcified pineal gland, being a man who could not control his anger and had every symptom that I just spoke on, you know, my truth was to change my diet, my eating habits, my way of living. My truth might not have to be your truth, but these are things we need to understand. That's something you cannot deny. And if you feel the need to want to try to deny me on this information, feel free to leave a message in the comment. You understand? Getting back to what's natural, what's real, what's awareness, what's consciousness, what's understanding. Instead of looking at things like a trend, we need to start getting into the bare bones of what it is, to get into the source of why and what has to happen and why we got to do certain things. And we can start simply by paying attention to the things that enter into our frequency range, because those things are going to be the very things that's going to elevate us out of the situations we're in, okay, or the hardships we're in. So please like, comment, subscribe. Get at your boy. Yeah, I say.